Welcome back to 2MoreTakes, everyone. This time,
it's 2MoreTakes. Yes,
it's 2MoreTakes. Yeah,
I'm trying.
not 3 more.
I don't know. Take 2.
Take 2 of 2MoreTakes. Take 5. Take 6. Take 7.
Matrix.
Take 11. Take how many of you fucking want right now. Yes, yes, Joe. Yes, exactly. We're doing the Matrix today.
Today we're doing some drugs.
Yeah, we're doing drugs. We're doing the Matrix. We're doing some steak, some chicken. Maybe they taste the opposite. Who knows? You want to fuck with a woman in a red dress, Joe? I can arrange that. Apparently.
I'll tell you what I do fucks with.
What do you fucks with?
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, yeah. Keanu Reeves. Yeah, we're doing the Matrix today. It's a bit of a funny mood, I guess, that we're both in because Matrix is one of those famous, very famous, almost like classic sort of like sci-fi, home.
It's.
I just don't know.
To be fair, it's a
there's
weird.
things to talk about with it, but
it's a weird. Matrix is a weird one because it is sci-fi, but obviously half of it doesn't feel as sci-fi as it is because it's set in.
It's like
technically
cyberpunk,
the
really.
Real world, but
it's like cyberpunk, I'd say.
Yeah,
it is a concept of like a genre as well, which is actually kind of funny because I think before The Matrix, which was in 1999, I believe it was a few years ago. Before that Keanu Reeves did Johnny Mnemonic, which is one of those cyberpunk films that's like hilariously dated now because it's like, oh my god, he can hold 42 megabytes of information in his brain. He's like this guy who's going to store tons of like interesting secrets that he's going to smuggle to people, and it's like, bitch, like that's. We can store 32 gigabytes, maybe 64 at this point on like an SD card, It's like, it's not that impressive. He could store 32 megabytes of information, Joe.
Well, actually, I've seen for sale ones that are larger than 64, I think, but not for cameras.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of just like a camera SD card. Because those are like the size of like a chip that I could see someone putting in their brain. In
there are SD cards of the same size, but for other things that store much more.
I suppose like phone SIM cards as well is another thing.
But you can store 10 megabytes in my brain.
That's a bit high, don't you think?
Okay.
Sorry.
I was in a good mood. I thought I could store 10 megabytes in my brain, Jack. Why you gotta put me down like that?
Damn, man, I don't know. Like, the thing is about The Matrix is that this is a very touchy subject for me in that The Matrix is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I hate the people who have co-opted it into being some sort of weird like weird sort of right-wing, alt-right, reactionary, like, sort of, like, thesis or something. It's really weird. I don't know why.
No, I mean, The Matrix is a weird one because, it's one of those films where, obviously, it works as a generic action sci-fi film, and if you don't pay attention to it, there's, you can enjoy it for the simplest form of what it is, or you can go in depth and think, okay, it's got more to it, but then if you take it the wrong way,
but it has got more to it. Yeah, that's the thing, is that like it has got more to it, but it's definitely not right wing. It's like, how the hell do you do a right wing reading of like The Matrix? It's like right-wing Star Trek fans. It's like an oxymoron. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. Star Trek is about like tolerance and accepting and sort of progressive values, and conservative and right-wing politics is the antithesis of that. If you're a right-wing Star Trek fan, you're a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, politics can come into it whenever. Like, we're not here to talk about politics. I'm not gonna fucking read like the Communist Manifesto to the listener right now. But I'm just saying, like, what really annoys me about films like this is that, like, it is the sort of thing where it's not that people can take it the wrong way; it's that people deliberately skew it and take it the wrong way. It's like The Matrix isn't really that ambiguous about what it's about. It's about anti-authoritarian stuff, and it's also about like personal freedoms and that. And I'm sure that like the people on the right wing who feel like their like rights are being like foreclosed on or whatever probably feel like they can relate really well to it, but they're just idiots. So. But yeah, I mean, disregarding that though, The Matrix, very good movie, very good, very very good. Possibly one of the only good Wachowski movies out there. Maybe the only.
What other movies have they done?
Well, obviously the other Matrix films are their own conversation. I think The Matrix Reloaded is a very good action film, but it definitely has some issues in that, like. There's Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
There's bad, like, blended CG effects. But then when you get to Revolutions, like, the CG is blended much better, but it's not really a Matrix movie.
No.
It's more of its own thing, which is both a blessing and a curse, I think. I actually really enjoy the Matrix films, but the Matrix is, of course, the only one that approaches great. The other two are kind of crap. Especially that entire, like, 5-minute length scene where it's just a party in Zion and Trinity and I was about to call him Mr. Matrix, but I meant Neo and Trinity are having
Mr. Matrix.
Mr. Matrix.
You can call me Mr. Matrix.
Whoa. They're like having like a 5-minute long sex scene, which is really awkward and disgusting because they've got all that shit on their bodies, because they're from the Matrix. Yeah, that's one thing I remembered from like being a kid. Is that one thing I remembered from The Matrix Reloaded is that it was the film I wanted to rewatch the least, because it's like, well, if I'm in the living room or whatever, and Neo and Trinity are getting it on for 20 minutes or whatever. I'm exaggerating, obviously. It's like I don't want that to be on the screen while I'm in the living room. It's like Godfather Part 3 with the awkward kissing between cousins. It's like, it's not only is this relationship horrible, obviously on purpose, but could you not do could you get the actors to not do like horrible awkward kissing?
It's all about the awkward kissing.
It looks like they're trying to eat jelly, like they're trying to suck it up from like the cup of jelly or Jello. I know we're nearly like 10 minutes in yet. We haven't even really talked about The Matrix, but I guess like in terms of like plot and premise, Joe, would you like to tell us what's going on?
Well, The Matrix is a location, basically. The Matrix is where everyone. All their minds are connected. The robots are sucking them for energy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, everyone's just in this fancy world that is like a replica of the real modern day world, or 90s world then. But
yeah.
And, Mr. Matrix shows up.
Who's Mr. Matrix?
Keanu Reeves.
But isn't Agent Smith really Mr. Matrix?
I mean,
perhaps Morpheus. Morpheus is Mr. Matrix.
Everyone's Mr. Matrix if you want them to be.
I know that the Oracle could be considered Mrs. Matrix.
Madam Matrix.
Or Miss Matrix.
But yeah, basically there are people most people are in the Matrix, but then there are people outside the Matrix who are trying to, break people free and destroy the robots and, destroy them, basically rescue everyone from the Matrix and stop everyone being farmed for fuel for robots.
It's fucked up Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah,
like
and basically,
world versus real world.
They go in and they find the one, and they're like, "Yo, do you want to take some drugs, some pills? You must choose whether you want to remain in the Matrix or learn the truth, and we'll come collect you from your egg. You'll wake up and see all the people." You'll wake up like a newborn baby, and we'll
like many of us, Neo, you were born into Kinder.
Yes, this is a very disgusting scene, though. I mean, obviously, it's the jarringness of. I think that's the first point in the film where they obviously break out the Matrix, isn't it?
Well, it's the first time we see the outside world is when he sees it. Because obviously that's the big reveal, like sort of like the end of the first act, maybe halfway through the first act.
Yeah, obviously,
it's that he's living in a dream world, basically.
But things before then, obviously, it gets a bit weird when the what were they
the agents.
The agents, yeah, which are basically just the AI, the robots. Controlling the Matrix.
They're like automated programs or whatever. I think they're called programs of the AIs and that. But some of them have individual sort of personalities, but that's sort of something that they're all from like the same template or whatever. But they're just like they're meant to be like lifeless, emotionless. They just do the job. But
they're there to,
some of them start to develop personalities.
Yeah, but they're there to keep the peace, keep the status quo of everyone, just vibing in the Matrix, and to stop the troublemakers, and obviously the outsiders. We've got what's his face,
Mr. Matrix, yeah.
No, Mr. Matrix, and then
you got characters. I'll list them off right now. You've got Neo, you've got Morpheus, got Trinity, you've got Sci-Fi, you've got
we don't need
Hank, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know his name. There's Dozer.
Yeah, there's few.
Weasel.
There's a couple of them that don't. They're not major roles.
There's
really.
The woman with the silver handgun in the white costume, and then there's the guy with the ponytail. I don't remember what their name is. Maybe Apo is one of them.
Yeah, but these are our resistance group that they go into the Matrix to fight the robots and try and rescue. They find people to help. Basically, they find there's a prophecy. As we've already mentioned about the Oracle, someone they go to
who turns out to be like another program, but like a very different one.
Yeah,
like she's got personality. She is very sort of human in a way, but she's not human.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
she tells them about like reads people their fortune and stuff like that. So it tells them like who they are rather than what will happen necessarily.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what she says is very sort of like ambiguous or like it's could be false or whatever.
I mean, that's kind of the thing with the film. It runs with this thing of what's real, what's true. It's all a bit vague until you really find out the truth, and it's like
It builds up to that sort of reveal quite well with the world. Like, you get, obviously, as you said, like there's like hints and stuff like that, and there's weird stuff that happens before that.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, post that, it becomes a very different kind of film. Like you say, it's like a resistance fighter film, but it's also like... it's like a Destiny film. Neo is the newest member, but he's also like supposed to be like
the
chosen one. The one,
He's the one.
But he doesn't feel like he is. He's told by the Oracle that he isn't, but Morpheus is told that he is, and stuff like that. It's all very confusing, and then in between that, you have like the other characters, not dealing well with him. Some of them dealing well with him becoming part of it. Like Cypher is a big stick out of like he quite clearly isn't happy with how life is. Being outside of the Matrix.
He wants to go back to the Matrix and forget it all, basically.
Yeah. And so he sort of sells them all out, and then eventually they take him down, but without not before losing like half their crew. So
yeah, it's this last ditch effort basically to. Obviously, they have to go. A lot goes on in the middle, but yeah, the Oracle. They go talk to the Oracle, and then Neo chooses, and they rescue him, and then they go in and. They're trying to figure out if Neo is the one or not, and then Morpheus sacrifices himself, gets captured. Then
yes,
Neo and Trinity are basically like, we're going in to rescue him. They go in. They go in hard. They go in fast.
It's it's part of the Oracle's prophecy as well that Neo would have to choose between his life and Morpheus's.
Yeah.
And so he chooses to save Morpheus with Trinity, and as you said, they go in. So obviously that's the climax of the film. Is like, and the film is just like a big spectacle of like action, not just like gunfights, but also like martial arts.
And obviously they can do things because the Matrix is in the mind. They have the whole learning process of Neo. You can control everything with your mind.
Yeah, you can bend reality and stuff like that. And a lot of the other characters do, like they jump further and stuff like that.
So it's like it's really over the top, but really like cool and like slow mo, and
it's almost like the scale of fights of like Japanese anime or something like that. In that it's like, oh yeah, you can just like break a wall with your fist or something.
I know kung fu.
I know kung fu.
Guns, lots of guns. It's just fun. It's funny, but it is like, it's just cool. You want to learn how to fly a helicopter? Bam! I'll just install that bit.
Yeah, it's like a really cool, unique premise. That's like, it's. I think Truman Show came out the year before. I think, and that was obviously it's kind of the same premise, really, but
except not sci-fi.
Yeah, but it's like the premise of like you exist in a fake reality where people are watching you and observing you, and you're not really free. You're kind of like a prisoner.
Yeah.
And that's obviously like the Matrix has led to things like simulation theory and stuff like that. And it was no doubt a massive influence on like Christopher Nolan with Inception and stuff like that. So it's had a massive cultural impact.
It is like, what is real, and in films especially, it's like, you can be like, is this character really dead or not? Because we don't actually know what reality we're in, and it's like, there's a lot of that obviously this.
Well, obviously more so in films like Inception. Here it's more like there's a few moments like that, especially in some of the later films. But I think there's a bit less. I think it's quite clear because obviously it's like. I suppose there's an argument that like is put forward by Sci-Fi of saying like, what if the quote unquote real world is the dream and the Matrix is real? I'd rather believe in that because the Matrix is much more comfortable and
But
that's another thing, by the way. Sorry about like just to briefly go back to the original thing I brought up with the Matrix and how difficult it is to talk about it. Is that like how the hell do the alt-right weirdos not see that Sci-Fi is their insert? He's afraid of what real life is, so he like turtles himself, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll go back into the Matrix, even though they're sucking me of life." I wonder where that allegory came from, by the way. Like a vampiric system that drains you of stuff. That's another thing where I'm like, how do you miss that? That he's clearly a stand-in for reactionaries,
But in the Matrix, there are no limits. For those who believe.
Yeah, and that leads to a lot of like awesome kung fu fights and stuff like that. Because as well, the agents their limits are endless as well because they
know they can do whatever they want. So
it's not like a case of them learning that because it's like that's how they express themselves or whatever. It's just like they just know how to counter and stuff like that. So it does lead to these really cool weird fights where you're seeing like two people doing like kung fu, and one of them is dressed in like a turtleneck, i.e. Neo, and one of them is dressed in like a full suit with sunglasses, i.e. Agent Smith. But yeah, the gun battles are really great as well. Sometimes like there's some. I actually think there's a lot of action that's just not really like the other films seem a lot more action packed, really, compared to the Matrix. I think it's just that they build up to it again. The build up is what makes that climax or those climactic gunfights in the film interesting. Yeah,
and obviously, that's pretty much all there is to. Obviously, it's this Neo believing, and then there's the whole love story between Trinity and Neo, and that saves. It's a bit of what is it, Sleeping
it's
Beauty
fine.
thing sort of thing, where it's like, oh, the kiss of life, and
it's
he's
like
back, but
the way it's done in that film is fine, but yeah, their relationship is a bit half baked, really.
But it's a bit of it is a bit like that fairy tale
well
thing,
in Revolutions quite well. Yeah, as you say, it's very fairy tale. Yeah, hold on to your boots, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye bye.
Yeah. But yeah, and then he gets done in. That's pretty much it for the plot of it, really, right? It's more of the.
Yeah, it's more just like things happen, and like you have a typical story there. It's like it is a chosen one, sort of hero's journey type narrative where he does learn stuff along the way, and eventually he learns to accept that he is the one or whatever. And he doesn't learn that through like
he gains
all the other stuff that goes
ultimate power.
Yeah, he gains that through love rather than like any other sort of like any training or any like anything that Morpheus tries to put down his throat or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like he just needed love.
And obviously Morpheus is quite the cool character as well. There's a lot of the just the style of them, really, isn't it? Because they're like full leather.
It's definitely
black.
Something that could have only been in like the late 90s, early 2000s, because it's like nowadays people would probably be like that seems just like edgy and needless. And
but
the music is
edgy.
kind of emblematic of that as well. It's fun, but I definitely don't think it's aged perfectly in that respect, because it's meant to be contemporary looking. That obviously reflects what was contemporary at the time. It doesn't anymore. I think that's something that the new film that is obviously coming out this year, which prompted the discussion of this, during our sci-fi sort of, time. I think that film's going to struggle with that, because from the looks of it, it looks like it's going to be like, yes, it's modern Matrix, and there's a character that looks a bit like he's dressed a bit like Morpheus, but he looks like he's maybe like Morpheus' son or something.
Well, again, I don't think another Matrix film is necessary, but it's happening.
I mean, I said this to you when it got announced. I said this actually. I think I told you about it before it got announced. I said this to a bunch of people when I rewatched the films recently before the trailer came out a while ago. I said that I feel like The Matrix is the only film which has not been like given a needless sequel / soft reboot.
But wait.
And then I waited like a month or whatever. Maybe no, I think it was like 2 weeks.
It was not
and
that
then
long,
it came out, and it was unbelievable. Like, it's so needless. I mean, the sequels themselves were not really a good addition to the story. But they exist. They're there.
But the original will always be something special, even if it is. It's got some dated bits. It's got some issues, but it's quite the innovative one especially cinematically. You got these cool action scenes, this bullet time, and all of that. So
bullet time, it's just like that fantastic technique that they worked out. Where if we'll still film everything in real time, but we'll just use like. It's almost like
cameras.
Stop motion. It's almost like stop motion animation or something. But you just use it in like a ring, and it gives that effect. It's amazing for what they managed to achieve with that. And obviously nowadays you could do that with like CG and engines and stuff like that. You couldn't really do it with like the people. You'd still have to do that with like as an element. But if you were doing like 3D animated films that we see now, could easily pull that off in a very almost photorealistic way. It'd still be a bit off, but I mean, like I was watching something the other day where this person was able to make. They were using them as an example. They were able to make in Blender. They were able to make photorealistic Lego minifigures where they had like thumbprints on them and stuff like that. And it was the sort of thing where I watched it and I said I could not tell the difference between that and real stop motion or whatever.
Yeah,
it was very impressive. That's where we're at now, and that's a consumer grade technology. Blender is free, you can add add-ons and that obviously cost a little bit, but compared to like how it used to work. I mean, now the only issue you run into is hardware, really. software has caught up. It's the hardware that really needs to sort of catch up now with regard to filmmaking, and that's something that I think was different at the time of The Matrix. You know, it's a time where the hardware was something they were able to sort of advance, but you know, the software was not really there. Because you look at like the CG in scenes like that, and it's not great. The original film, they didn't really use as much. In Reloaded, they really didn't get the idea. Like, the reason it works at Revolutions with like the CGI elements of like, you know, Neo and Agent Smith fighting in the rain. The reason that works is because basically they're using things like the rain to hide the imperfections of the textures and the animations of the faces.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think the bits that look the best in The Matrix are the bits. There are some practical bits they do, especially in obviously that lobby shootout. A lot of those pillars that they destroy, and you know, when they actually do, obviously they get Keanu on some rigs occasionally to, you know, move him around or, you know, stick him in a place. Not in that scene, but in other scenes. Just the practical stuff looks good. Again, there's some CG that's okay and some that's a little bit off.
Most of it just seems to be stuff that they're either like putting in the background or like overlaying. Yeah. The music as well in these films is so classic. It's very, again, it's like it was in. The funny thing about the Matrix soundtrack is that it was in every single like 2008 YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like it was. That's just how it was, and it's just like that's the memory I have of that era of not only YouTube but also of soundtracks like that.
If you want a cool fight scene or, you know, just cool something, you get a Matrix soundtrack.
Oh, dude, you just have a how to do video. It was not just the, you know, the
no, I know, just make it sound cool.
You have the also like you just like the that's that on. You just have that in the background of just like you just doing like some desktop tutorial or something, and that's how it was.
But yeah, no, there's some good music. It fits the action, and it's like it's really cool. And you got the bumping soundtrack. And you're like, yeah, I'm in.
It's got an aesthetic that is not timeless, but still very iconic.
Yeah,
it's like
it stands out.
It's cool in a respect of like
those
like,
sunglasses.
It's like neat. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's like it wouldn't be cool now, but it's like it's neat.
Yeah.
That is something that I do think, again, that's like fashion-wise, that's, I think, another thing that stood out really a lot with the trailer for the new Matrix films was, like, the film or whatever, is, like, the Morpheus-looking character, his fashion sense is sticking out so much in that. Also, the CGI does not look good in that film. Does not look great. I'm gonna be open to it though, because it looks like it could be very different.
Yeah, I'm not too interested, but I'll probably check it out at some point.
Yeah, well, it's like what we said about when we talk about Halloween films. It's like after that I started watching some of the sequels, and some of them are not worth watching. But like sometimes, you know, you get bored and you're like, oh, I know this franchise, you know, maybe I'll give it a go, even though it's gonna be garbage. It's like I don't necessarily watch that for like the same recreational use as like some people who might be just like, oh, I'll turn my brain off and watch something. I do that, but I don't like intellectualize it afterwards. I don't say, oh, that was really good. I don't recommend it to people. It's just like, oh, I need something to fill the space, just like other people do. But I'm under no delusion that it was any good. But you know, that's what I do sometimes with films like The Matrix. It's like, oh, I would say that the sequels are better than what I said there for like they're certainly better than the Halloween sequels. They're just awful. Halloween 3 was interesting, but also kind of boring in parts of its plotting, and it was very weird. I wish it had done like better things here and there, but and then obviously I recently talked about Halloween Kills and how it's awful. It's one of the worst horror films I've ever seen. Maybe not ever, but at least recently it was utter fucking garbage. But yeah, but The Matrix is like, as an action film and as like a cyberpunk film, and like also like as you said, like ideas of like, you know, when are we awake, when are we asleep, are we prisoners to a system?
What do you believe?
What do you believe? Yeah, like
Deja vu.
Like, yeah, like what is the dream? What is reality? All that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's very. It's done really well. I think. I think we both think. But yeah, I think there's a reason why it's so compelling to people of multiple different like socio-political backgrounds. Is that like it? I think that is like, I suppose, a merit you can say in favor of the film, just in terms of like in its own right, without like foregoing any specific sort of policies or ideals. It's like it kind of appeals to anyone who's ever felt like they're fighting against the world or whatever. Or like they feel like they're being oppressed or whatever. That's not to say that either of us feel like we're oppressed at all, obviously, but it's just like what I'm saying is it fits in semantically with that idea of like fighting a system of some sort, even if it's
I ain't gonna be part of your system.
Yeah, or like just wanting to, there's even the character of Sci-Fi where it's like you don't want to concern yourself with issues. It's like. It's definitely heavily politicized in certain ways, but I don't think that obviously it's not one of those films where I think there's a reason why right-wing weirdos have been able to co-opt it, and that's because it isn't one of those films that smacks you in the face and says this is not a right-wing or like a leftist type thing. It just sort of lays down like its morals and its ideas, and it lets you figure them out, which is both again for this film specifically a blessing and a curse. I guess should we get into the final thoughts then? Because I think we've talked about a bunch of stuff. Like, there's not really much to talk about like the Wachowskis and their careers because their careers have been shit.
The only other thing I was going to mention about The Matrix was also their use of the color palette. It's quite cool as well.
That's a good one. Sorry, yeah.
That popped into my head because I was thinking, it's that cool like green tinge to it, but it's like that's. When you're in the Matrix, it's all green.
Well, it's like obviously that's the code. That's the code, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you're not, it's blue or it's like more normal. But...
I love the look of the Matrix. It's like this grey sort of like miserable reality where it's like nothing interesting happens in your day-to-day life, and then it does kind of work in a way sort of with like films like American Psycho or stories like that where it's. You could imagine it as being all the fantasy of that one character just because he leads such a boring life.
Yeah.
It's like escapism or whatever. And that's something that's an idea I've been increasingly getting more engaged with as time goes on, just as like a narrative type sort of instrument, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah,
you're absolutely right about the color, though. It's
it's just it's because it's not necessarily obvious, but I was just thinking, obviously, you have that green theme going on, and it's like, that's obviously... Other films do it, but it is... Yeah,
that's fair.
The Matrix.
All right, yeah. The final thoughts, Joe. What are we thinking? What are you thinking?
I don't know. The Matrix is one where, when I watched it originally, when I was like Alien, I always liked... And why
are you bringing up Alien, Joe? What's the relation to that?
I don't know. There are films that I used to watch when I was little that stuck with me, and I've only grown to like them more. Matrix is like that, but originally when I watched it, I didn't really like it that much. Obviously, I was younger then. But The Matrix is a weird one because I had to rewatch it recently anyway. Not maybe a little while ago anyway, but because I was like, I don't quite remember everything that happened in it. And then I rewatched it. It's like, yeah, it was
very. Well, it was doing the runs on Netflix, wasn't it? So
it was, I think, but it's a very cool film, and it does have the idea. It's got some cool ideas, some cinematic innovation. Again, soundtrack. Keanu Reeves, that gives it at least an extra 5 points. So, but it's also Keanu Reeves
Why do you come?
Keanu Reeves was sort of where his prime began, was around the Matrix time, and Speed.
Oh no! You see, I gotta disagree with that man, Bill and Ted. That's the beginning of Keanu Reeves as we used to know him.
Well, see, I haven't.
And then now we know him as John Wick. But...
Yeah, he became the action star.
Constantine was also, I think, like a short while after or during the Matrix films, and that was another film by Keanu Reeves I remember really liking. I watch that actually from time to time.
But yeah, I mean,
it's definitely as you said, that's like the famous example of like that's kind of where he began to take more of a serious edge.
And I mean,
especially for nowadays.
But also, Keanu Reeves is an odd one because, I mean, his acting in Matrix is a little bit weird, but because he doesn't do that much.
He's not the best actor.
Yeah, he doesn't do that much.
He's always trying, is the thing. So.
We like him because he's Keanu.
He's got such a naturally likable nature to him. He's he's always a good avatar for an audience rather than like a charismatic sort of like he did used to have charisma. He used to have charisma. He used to have charisma when it came to like comedic performances. Because you watch the Bill and Ted films, and both him and Alex Winter are keeping up with each other. Whereas like the new Bill and Ted film, Alex Winter is just like acting circles around him. And Alex Winter is somebody who had not like been acting in films for like a decade or two up until that point. So
yeah.
I think part of it has to do with, it might be obviously to do with the tragedies in his life that have happened, but also like just the changing attitude. He's gotten older. The parts he's doing are very different nowadays. But yeah. And obviously he doesn't shave or cut his hair anymore. So whereas we used to have a few more like different looks to him, really.
Yeah. But The Matrix itself. It's a good film. It's a very good film. For me personally, giving it a random number out of 10.
You need to stop saying random. It's not random.
They are.
No, they're subject to change, but they're obviously not random because you are trying.
A number
You're not just
of
go like,
value.
1 out of 10.
For The Matrix, I give a value of 8.5.
Okay. That's solid. That's a solid score.
I mean, it could drop or it could rise, but right now I'm in a good mood.
You know what? Before I get into my final thoughts, this might actually be... I don't know how I feel about it necessarily, but I think at the very least, I think this might actually be an occasion. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to sort of remind myself when I go on my rant for it, but I feel like I could definitely do the same score, really.
Yeah.
This might be a 2 more takes first, where we both give it the same score, but yeah. I mean, you talked about it plenty, and obviously I interrupted you with the Keanu Reeves stuff there.
I brought him up.
As well, what I mean is obviously, so I don't really have much more to say about it, really. I obviously have my problems with it with regards to how it's been used, but that's not really the movie's fault. That's just how life has turned out. I mean, in general... I just think that it's a wonderfully made film. It's got like really, really cool and nifty ideas and tricks in it that you didn't really see in other films, and you don't really see still. It's innovative, and you should watch it, But yeah, it's fantastic. You should watch it. Please, just watch it. But yeah, I guess I'll give it a... you know what? Part of me wants to say a 9 because it is a really good movie, but you know what? This is going to be a first, Joe. I'm going to say 8.52 as well. Not 5.2. I meant as in as well.
8.52?
No.
A little bit different.
No. As well, 8.5 as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think we both. This is another one. I mean, we mostly agree on. A lot of these iconic films like this, we both have good opinions of, but we'll both have
this one
almost
unfortunately
identical.
has that sort of controversial edge.
Are we in the
Matrix?
Matrix?
Like other people.
Today?
That's the ultimate thing to take away from it is like the concept.
Well, no, we both given it the same score there, and I mean, are you a robot, Jack?
What the fuck do you... I just said it's a first time thing. Like I'm just like we never give it the same score.
No.
So I was like, you know what? For once, I actually kind of feel like I'm maybe on at least on a score level, we're on the same page.
Or we're in the Matrix. We'll never know.
Maybe, I don't know.
But yeah.
This is a problem here. Is that like this? Once we've gotten past all the other stuff, it's just like we just fuck it. Okay, just watch the fucking movie. All right, watch The Matrix.
Would recommend.
Eat your fucking dinner. Go to bed. Die happy.
Okay.
My name has been Jack. This has been 2MoreTakes. His name has been
Joe. That's me.
That's him.
Pleasure doing business with you.
We've been doing business times.
Yeah.
This has been The Matrix, or has it? Or maybe we're in The Matrix, or maybe
we
we're not in
are
The Matrix.
The two.
Maybe we're in a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. Who knows? We'll do Inception at one point, I'm sure, but we can talk about that.
Mind-bending realities, am I right?
Yeah. It's Mr. Matrix, am I right?
Until next time, everyone.
Goodbye, fuckers.